Welcome into the Inside Indiana show. I'm a clearly under the weather Ken Bikoff along with Ed Magoni. And the Hoosiers not feeling all that well this week either after a 16-10 loss to Penn State in their Big Ten opener. The Hoosiers didn't give up a lot of points on defense, but also didn't score a lot of points on offense. Had a huge stretch during the second and third quarter where they didn't record a first down. The Hoosiers certainly had a team that has a lot of issues, and yet had a chance to win at the end of the game.
Yeah, once again they came down to the last possession, almost like North Texas, where they rallied at the end and they put together one good drive there right toward the end of the fourth quarter, and then they were able to get the ball back. Defense came up with a big stop and got the offense the ball back, but they just ran out of time at the end of the game, and it's very reminiscent of the North Texas game, although they were actually in this game more so than the North Texas game, I thought. Yeah,
no question. And, you know, even with that offense not necessarily clicking as well as the Hoosiers would have hoped, as some highlights roll, you know, the defense just, you know, like I said, 16 points, but they give up 464 yards of offense to Penn State, and it's a Penn State team that hasn't been known for exactly rolling up the yardage this year.
No, in fact, the Penn State offense is pretty awful, I think. No offense to Penn State. I mean, their running game is solid. Their offensive line's a little bit questionable. Their quarterbacks are very erratic with their passing. I mean, they missed some wide-open receivers on numerous occasions against Indiana, although Indiana's defensive backs, like Lawrence Barnett, did come up with 3 pass breakups, but they were able to connect on the one long play to Derek Moyer, and that was pretty much the difference in the ballgame, just hitting that one long throw against more or less a beaten or blown coverage, just cost Indiana the football game, more or less.
Now, it's not a knock against Indiana's offense in terms of just how good this Penn State defense is, because it is a good group. Defensive line is fantastic. Certainly owned the Hoosiers for most of the game. IU had trouble running the ball. Had a quarterback making his first start of his college career in Dusty Keel, and yet Keel didn't make a lot of mistakes. He made a big mistake. Rather, Stephen Houston's one that made the mistake on a fumble to open the second half. But your thoughts on how Dusty came out and played in his first college start?
He was solid. You know, he missed some guys. Some guys didn't help him out by dropping the football. They had several drops in that game. That, you know, when you have a guy who's starting his first game against a very good defense like Dusty Keel was, you need all your supporting cast to be firing on all cylinders, and clearly they weren't. I mean, the offensive line didn't hold up as well as you kind of hope, and the receivers also just didn't help him out by fielding the ball when he put it on the target. And then, you know, he missed some guys, but he also got away with a couple. I mean, the double deflection that DeMarlo Belcher ends up catching and running for like 20 yards, and you know, and he had some other erratic throws that bounced off a couple of defenders' hands, and they could have picked it off. But for the most part, I thought he played pretty solid. He didn't make any critical mistakes, and you know, he didn't post the greatest completion percentage, but once again, his receivers dropped some passes.
Now, the coaching staff said that receivers, by their count, had dropped 7 passes. That's a lot of passes for any team to drop, let alone one, and still have a chance to win at the end of the game. And the staff also said that the Hoosiers continue to record what they call lulls, where their players not playing through the end of a play or getting all the way down to keep kind of that high motor running that you really think of when it comes to playing defense. Now, that was a point of emphasis the week before. The problem wasn't solved. Fewer points on the board, but just your thoughts on the fact that continues to be a problem for this defense.
Well, that's really surprising, because I think Mike Eckler is a great motivator, and he's on the sideline, you know, whereas Doug Mallory's up in the box. And you would think with Coach Eckler down there on the sideline that the defense would be constantly fired up. You have a good leader like Jeff Thomas out there who plays full tilt 100% of the time. You think the guys would see him playing that way and kind of assume that they would kind of conform to the senior leader's mentality and performance, but it's not necessarily happening. You know, that's something that they need to stop having, those loafs, because, you know, if one guy slows a guy down, but there's no one there to follow up and gang tackle him to the ground like they needed a couple of times against Penn State's running backs, that costs you big. I mean, he goes from 5 yards to 15 in an awful big hurry if no one else is there to help, and, you know, no one is pursuing to the ball, or you're blowing assignments and missing your gaps and your lanes and all. You know, you aren't maintaining your rush lanes and stuff like that. And, you know, you would think that they would be getting better at that game by game, week by week, but sometimes it just isn't happening.
Well, when you talk a little bit about leadership, we have to talk about Jarrell Drain, a player that missed the Penn State game with an injury, but I know that the Hoosier coaching staff was very happy with how he reacted to the injury in helping some of his teammates, and it's something that Coach Wilson really said that he was proud of and would like to see more of with this team, and he talked about it a little bit at this week's press conference.
It was good, and Doug, actually, as Coach Eckler said, he thought during the game that Darrell really did a great job. And here's a senior, you're taking one of my games away, a chance to play against Penn State, and that was pretty nice to see. So that to me, that says a lot from where he's came in our time of playing for us, getting that taken away, but stepping up, and we appreciate it. And that was pointed out to him.
Now, of course, that Indiana's defense was solid for stretches, but let me ask you the key question. Was it that Indiana's defense was playing that well, or that Penn State's offense was struggling as much as it seemed?
Well, I don't know if it necessarily struggled that much. They still put up almost 500 yards, 460-plus yards of offense against Indiana's defense. I think Indiana's defense stepped up at critical times and got off the field, and that's important, but at the same time, you can't expect a better offense to allow you to get away with that kind of surrendering that kind of yardage. I mean, when you go up against a Wisconsin or a Michigan or even a Northwestern or Illinois, I mean, those teams can move the ball pretty proficiently. Penn State's offense is obviously one of the lower ranked ones in the Big Ten, and you aren't going to get away with that against better offenses.
And one of those better offenses you already mentioned, Illinois Fighting Illini, they're the Hoosiers' opponent this week, and when we come back, we'll take a look at how the Hoosiers might do against Illinois.
What's up, worker? How's it going? What's up, buddy? You doing good?
Want to get inside Indiana? Call 800-282-GO-IU today to get the best in-depth coverage you'll find anywhere on the Indiana Hoosiers. You'll get 12 full-color glossy issues packed with the Hoosier news you crave, plus our exclusive online express edition featuring game previews, reviews, and much, much more, all for just $49.95. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Somebody in there! Let me in! Please!
Welcome back into the Inside Indiana Show. Ken Bikoff with Ed Magoni, and the Hoosiers this week take on the Illinois Fighting Illini, a team that Indiana, Ed, has played pretty well in recent years. They've split the last 8 meetings with Illinois. The interesting thing about that is when Indiana has won, they've won some tight games. When they've lost, they've gotten blown out. And so the challenge is going to be there, but Indiana has won 5 of the last 7 meetings in Bloomington.
Yeah, that's certainly a positive, but, it's one of those things where if you look too much on the past, you kind of think, oh, well, they'll be able to hang in this game, but they need to come and play. You can't just expect to come out and make sure and expect the game to be close just because it has been close in the past or that you've had success at home against a team. Now, sometimes it does factor in. I think Illinois is going to be looking ahead a little bit to their big meeting with Ohio State. It's going to be a big opportunity for Illinois to beat the Buckeyes for once in a blue moon in Champaign. So they may be looking past the Hoosiers a little bit, and that may give Indiana a little bit of an edge. But they can't count on that, so they have to come out and play as hard as they can, like they did against Penn State, and hopefully, things bounce their way, a couple of turnovers or something. They may be able to give them a good game.
Illinois is off to a 5-0 start. This is going to be their first game, a true road game that they're going to have when they come to Bloomington. And one of the weapons that they're going to bring with them is quarterback Nathan Shieldhouse. And he's a kid, Ed, that is a kind of player, exactly the kind of player that gives Indiana's defense trouble. Not that there isn't really a player that doesn't give Indiana's defense trouble in recent years, but this is especially a mobile quarterback, somebody who can make things happen with his feet and his arm, and I think that's going to add a little bit of an extra challenge as well.
Yeah, I mean, Shieldhouse is he's obviously the leading passer on the team. He doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. He has 7 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions. But, like you said, when things break down, the play isn't working out, the coverage is strong. If you give him a lane, he's going to burn you. And I believe he's the second leading rusher on the team. And, when you have a combination of a guy who can throw the ball like that, and he can move, and he's mobile, and he can throw on the run and run, that's a pretty lethal combination, because you have to be so disciplined on the front line to contain him, yet also generate pressure and not give him creases in your defensive front to run through. That I don't know if IU's younger players are really going to be that disciplined to be able to contain him as much as he needs to be contained.
Well, the secondary is going to have to contain wide receiver A.J. Jenkins as well. He's a kid who's already recorded 40 receptions this year, which is just an astounding number for 5 games. I mean, I'm no math major, but that's 8 catches a game, and it's really going to be a challenge for the Hoosiers to contain him. But on the flip side of the ball, their second leading tackler, linebacker Jonathan Brown, suspended for this game for kneeing a Northwestern Wildcat in the groin during last week's game. How much will that help that they're going to be missing one of their weapons on defense?
Well, Illinois is a pretty talented team. I'm not sure if that's going to really affect the outcome of this game as much as everyone would like to think it will. They have pretty good depth. They have a lot of senior leadership on this team. I think it'll affect them in the standpoint that someone else is going to have to come in and fill in his position who may not be as familiar with the defense or may not perform as high a level. But at the same time, they have enough depth and they have enough talent on defense to where I don't know that it'll affect the game that much.
Well, there still is a question about who's going to be the quarterback for the Hoosiers between Dusty Keel and Edward Wright Baker. Wright Baker missed last week's game with an ankle injury. Dusty Keel came in and got his first college start, as we talked about earlier. Now, quarterback coach / co-offensive coordinator Rod Smith had kind of an interesting way of putting it when it comes to that competition of quarterbacks. But I think that this little clip that we're about to show also says a little something about the Hoosier team that has come up close in a number of occasions and just fallen short, and how they might fare. This is right now, here's Coach Smith just kind of giving his take on how the Hoosiers might be able to look at their current situation.
The results on the field are not what we want right now, but it's coming, I think. And I was telling the other day, sometimes when you get knocked down in a well and you keep trying to get up out of that sucker, someone's on top swinging a hammer and knocking you back down, it's frustrating because you keep trying to go back up and you get knocked back down. But after a while, you just got to say, listen, you're going to get tired of swinging that thing. When I get up out of this well, then I'm going to be the one on top, And that's kind of the analogy we use. You got to keep fighting. You got to keep clawing and scratching and keep doing what you're doing and believe in the process of where we're going, and things will work out.
Well, of course, the Hoosiers, Ed, they're going to want to hammer the ball on the ground a little bit to take some of the pressure off of whoever plays quarterback, and that could be a challenge against an Illinois run defense that ranks 10th in the country, giving up just 79 yards a game. What kind of challenge is that, especially for an offensive line that is young and has gone through a lot of changes this year?
Well, I can't imagine that Illinois' defense is going to be that much better than Penn State's defensive front. And without Jonathan Brown this week, that's going to affect their run defense certainly. That's the one area I do think that will have an effect is in their run defense. So, Stephen Houston had a little bit of success last week against Penn State, who has one of the better front sevens in the country, actually one of the better defenses in the country. And, if they can get a crease here and a crease there and pick up some yards, that may relax Dusty Keel or Wright Baker, whoever's back there, and allow them to attack a pass defense that isn't on the same level as its run defense. So, if they can get a little bit of ground game going, it'll certainly open things up for the receivers and the quarterbacks throwing the ball down the field.
Yeah, Houston has been effective, for the most part. He's had games where he didn't get a lot of carries, but when he's been in the game, his combination of power and vision, I think, has been a positive. Now, he's a junior college kid that not a whole lot of Hoosier fans might know all that well, but when we come back, you're going to get a chance to know Stephen Houston a little bit better with our own Courtney Cronin.
It's a new year. There's a new buzz, and there's a new Inside Indiana magazine. For more than 20 years, Inside Indiana has been your best source for the kind of in-depth coverage of Hoosier athletics you crave, and now the best just got better. By calling 800-282-GO-IU, you can experience 12 packed issues dedicated to Indiana athletics in full-color glossy brilliance for only $49.95. But that's not all. You'll also receive access to our new Inside Indiana Express edition online, featuring game previews, news, photos, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? To stay up to date on the Kevin Wilson era and all the excitement surrounding Tom Crean's Hoosiers, plus all the news you want on the rest of Hoosier athletics, call 800-282-GO-IU today. Inside Indiana, You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Welcome back into the Inside Indiana show. Ed, before we went to break, we talked a little bit about Stephen Houston. And right now at a Memorial Stadium, our own Courtney Cronin's there with Stephen to talk to him a little bit about what's going to be coming up in the Illinois game this week. Courtney, how are you doing?
Thanks, Ken. Joined alongside redshirt sophomore running back Stephen Houston. I'm Courtney Cronin. Stephen, there are a lot of new faces on this team this year, including yourself, coming out of junior college in Kansas, right? Independence Community College in Kansas. How did that prepare you to be playing Big Ten football?
Basically, just growing up as a person and as a player, just watching the Big Ten, the SEC, just all of the BCS schools while you're in junior college, it makes you work so much harder to strive to get there. And so I just stuck my head in books and did everything I could to make it out of junior college, basically.
Was that year in junior college, do you think, beneficial for you, not going straight from high school right into college? Was that even an option at that point?
It was very beneficial for me growing up. I don't think that I would have been equipped going to college straight out of high school because I was still in that immature mind state. Going to junior college made me mature as a man and as a football player and as a student too.
And taking a look at how much more physical, than junior college, it probably goes without saying, but how have practices kind of been different preparing you for, both type of games when you take a look back?
Just Coach Wilson in general. My coach in junior college, he was much more laid back. He'll say run, 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 but with Coach Wilson, he'll like scare it in you, and so you don't want to do nothing wrong. So every time you get the ball, it's 100% full speed. Period. Even if it's as soon as you get the ball, he blow the whistle. You better be fast doing your steps, even reading the play when you're not in. He wants everything to be fast. He'll stop the play and ask you if you're drinking water, what was the play. So you got to be on your P's and Q's.
Now with the running back situation here at Indiana, you got two other backs, including yourself, with Matt Perez and D'Angelo Roberts. How has been rotating backs, kind of getting yourself more reps in there? Has it been a little bit more of a challenge though, if you're not always in the starting role?
It's definitely a challenge. Coming from junior college, I was a starter. It's not really a big deal to me, splitting time. As a back, you always want to be the starter, the one that's in the spotlight per se, but at the same time, you have to play your role, and right now I'm just playing my role, and who knows, it might lead to me starting from here on out.
Now, you're getting more reps in there, and is it the type of situation where your coaching staff, where Coach McCullough has said that they want to get you in more of a rhythm role where, when you're getting more reps, you're doing better? It kind of goes without saying, but it seems like that's something that's gone on for the last few weeks.
Yeah, I say for me, D'Angelo or Matt, the more reps, the better you get in the groove, the more comfortable you are. But at the same time, who's ever hot, whether it's me, D'Angelo, or Matt, you have to play the support role. And then you got to cheer him on, whether he's in there for 5, 2, 13 the whole game. You just got to do what you got to do for the team at that point.
Now, taking a look at this quarterback situation right now, you hear all the stuff, people talking about the quarterback controversy. Is it a little bit difficult, though, for you, not knowing who's going to be your starting guy every single week?
Not really, because I can't control that. Because, like I said, I play running back, so I just can't go up to Coach, I want Dusty, or I want Ed, or I want Trey. Whoever starts, I have the most confidence in them, and obviously Coach does too.
Now, taking a look at Illinois coming up this weekend, you got 5 up front on the defensive line. It seems like they've been adjusting their defense towards the personnel. What kind of difficulty does that pose to you?
I don't really pay it too much attention. I just go out there and practice. The scouts give us a great look to the best of their ability to prepare us for the game, and then in the game it should just come natural.
All right, Stephen, thanks so much. Looking to make an impact coming from junior college into his first year as a Hoosier. Ken and Ed, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Courtney, for the report. Now, Ed, Stephen Houston's going to be a key to the Hoosiers, as will D'Angelo Roberts or DeMarlo Belcher, whoever plays quarterback, everybody on defense. But more importantly, team's 1-4. They lost their Big Ten opener. They have yet to beat an FBS school. Where do you think this team is mentally and physically, considering they've been pushed by this coaching staff a lot harder than maybe they have been in the past?
Well, they definitely have some injuries. I mean, there's no question about that. Jarrell Drain, Leon Beckham, several other guys have been hurt. Deweese Wilson, Kofi Hughes, Edward Wright Baker. I mean, the list is pretty lengthy at this point in the season. I don't know if that's so much because of how much they've been pushed, it's just as opposed to some bad luck. But at the same time, I think physically speaking, they should be in pretty good shape. I think that they conditioned properly and almost over-conditioned to the point where they got a little bit too lean. I think that's what Kevin Wilson was saying last week. He said that we worked them to the point where we need to build them back up, so that maybe they're a little bit too light and a little bit too lean. They need a little more beef on them. But certainly, I don't think that's good. That's a negative as the season wears on. I think that will keep them going at a higher level. But mentally speaking, I think you lose 4 games. It's tough on anyone, particularly when you haven't beaten an FBS school. But at the same time, they've been so close in so many of these games that they've been one possession away in every single contest. You would think that would be a positive heading into Illinois, believing that they just came off a game where they battled Penn State down to the wire. They had they had a shot there at the end to win it, and you would think that would give them some confidence heading into the Illinois game against a team that's 5-0. But is playing, like I said before, is playing in his first road game, and they've played some pretty good competition. They beat Arizona State. They beat Northwestern. But, I think mentally the coaching staff seem to think that this team is actually getting even better. It seems to be improving. They seem to start believing in each other and teaching each other and helping each other out. And they're playing for the guy next to them, is what Mike Eckler said. And I think that if they continue to do that, eventually they're going to get that W.
Well, of course, Illinois 5-0, but they haven't exactly been blowing teams out. Last 3 wins for the Fighting Illini have been by a total of 9 points. They've played some tight ones. Will they be able to knock off the Hoosiers? When we get back, we'll let you know what we think.
What's up, Worker? How's it going? What's up, buddy? You doing good?
Want to get inside Indiana? Call 800-282-GO-IU today to get the best in-depth coverage you'll find anywhere on the Indiana Hoosiers. You'll get 12 full-color glossy issues packed with the Hoosier news you crave, plus our exclusive online express edition featuring game previews, reviews, and much, much more, all for just $49.95. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Somebody in there! Let me in! Please!
Welcome back to the Inside Indiana show. Ed, we only have a couple of minutes left, but the question is, can the Hoosiers pick up their first Big Ten win of the season this week against Illinois?
Well, I think the game is, Illinois is a team that's kind of similar to Penn State offensively. They have multiple backs who can hurt you. The biggest difference is that they have a really good quarterback, and Penn State does not have a really good quarterback, and they also have they have a better offensive line than Penn State. So if you take that into account, and their defense has been pretty solid against the run, although IU doesn't run the ball that well anyway, but they're able to pressure the quarterback. They have 17 sacks on the season. That's a lot of sacks and a lot of pass rush coming against a young offensive Indiana's offensive line is awfully young. I think they have a little bit too much firepower for the Hoosiers offensively against the Indiana defense, and I think that ultimately Illinois will win this game. But I think Indiana has a chance in it. I don't think it's going to be a lopsided affair. I think Indiana has proven it plays better at home than it does on the road, and if Illinois plays like Indiana plays on the road, Hoosiers might have a chance.
Illinois has shown a tendency to play a little bit up or down to the level of its opponent. Indiana historically has done that. And this week, I think that this is a team at home that the Hoosiers think that they could beat. This is a hungry team. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say Indiana wins its first Big Ten game of the season. It might be shocking to some, but Matter of as far as I'm concerned, I think this could be a good matchup for the Hoosiers, especially if the quarterbacks play well. Which obviously, I mean, that's any time that you have a game that is critical. As long as the quarterbacks manage things, defense gets off to a good start, I think that it'll be a shocking win. And that's what we got. Well, shockingly, we're out of time for this week for the Inside Indiana show. So for Ed Magoni, I'm Ken Bikoff. Thanks for watching, and pace yourself.